Good good evening, everybody. It's Captain Jesso, aka the Great Value MBT. Skinny white boy, don't you love it? I want to talk a little bit today. I like to talk, clearly. I do a lot of that on this channel here, but we want to talk today about vintage collecting and getting a lot of old vintage cards, and kind of myth busting and breaking some myths. As you can see on the screen, I guess technically it's over here, backwards camera, haha. Um, we've got a little presentation, a little something made up, a little something on the screen. Hope it looks nice. I'm trying to improve everything in this channel, so we're gonna build this up slowly as we go. But I want to talk about a lot of vintage collecting, and I think a lot of people um, get a lot of what's the terminology I'm looking for here? Misconstruency or something. I don't know. But basically, a lot of people kind of get the feeling that collecting vintage Yu-Gi-Oh nowadays it just as impossible for people on a budget. Just as impossible for people who don't have the money to put in thousands of dollars to go buy, LOB first editions or things like that. And vintage collecting in Yu-Gi-Oh is still very much doable, but we have to look in the right avenues and we have to look in realistic avenues here. So here's the problem. There was a lot of hype built up last year. Well, again, I think everybody's talked about this a lot. There's been a lot of hype built up in the Yu-Gi-Oh market last year. Everything going on last year, pandemic. Yes, people are sorting through and they're trying to find things to do. We've been over this in this channel before. If you've never been here before, this is not new news. And so a lot of the market prices and a lot of stuff soared straight up. And now we're looking at old sets, and we're talking typically the big three. So your big three being Legend of Blue Eyes, Metal Raiders, and Magic Ruler, of course. And if you look at singles from those, especially the first editions of what I really want to talk about, your higher rarity cards, they're getting very expensive. Even sealed on these guys right now is incredibly expensive. Just to buy a pack, let alone a box, is generally way, way, way out of the budget range for anybody, let alone, people who are making very little money or don't have a whole giant ton of money to blow on Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think there's a lot of people that are getting turned away from collecting because they start to think that it's just not possible to get a hold of some of these cards, to get a hold of some of these sets. And I'm always a big believer, big into don't buy the hype, okay? But also think outside the box. Don't just look at what everybody else is doing. Don't follow a trend. Look at everything else. And there's so much stuff here that's getting very much overlooked, especially people who want to buy stuff to have some down the road investment to maybe build some value over time. You don't have to go and buy new sets and set them for 10, 15 years to try to get something out of them. As a matter of fact, you can still get vintage. Now, let's start off by being realistic. Let's start off with just facing the facts here and getting down to the bread of it. You are reasonably on a budget, not going to go out and buy an LOB 001 First Edition Blue Eyes White Dragon at even a nearly reasonable price. It's just not going to happen, okay? If you want to get a card like that, you're going to have to save up, you're going to have to set a goal for that, and you're going to have to go work towards that if you don't just have the pocket money, just go, hey, okay, there you go, we're going to go buy it. And you have to start looking at what other alternatives and what you can buy and what you can afford. And the point that I guess I'm trying to get into today is there's a lot of older stuff, a lot of vintage sets, a lot of things that are getting very underlooked that are extremely, extremely, extremely cheap to actually buy cards and get a hold of. Now, again, the ruling I always like to go upon when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh! Is buy what you like. The good thing with me with Yu-Gi-Oh! Is there's a lot of stuff that I do like, so there's a lot of stuff that I will want to go in and actually buy. But if we're just going to talk on a dollar scale value, there's still lots and lots of options left. Yes, everybody looks at the big three, right? You've got your Blue Eyes White Dragon, you've got your Metal Raiders, you've got your Magic Roller. Those are your big three sets, okay? But like I said, it's just not feasible to go out right now and try to buy anything in those sealed, or to buy typically, your foil singles. And even Pharaoh's Servant to that extent is getting to that point. But here's a thought that I have. A lot of us like to watch channels like Ruxin34 and Simply Lucky and Cyber Knight. And I mean, the list goes on. I don't have to make an example of that. And they're getting into really high-end stuff. They're getting to incredibly expensive product like these three. I mean, it draws attention to their channel, it draws people to their channel. But eventually, at some point, these boxes and these cases and things that they're opening are going to become a lot less feasible. Your average YouTuber now is not going to go and buy those boxes or to open or whatever. If anybody's buying these, they're probably buying them to hold on to them to accrue value over time. They're huge investments. But my thought process is, I feel like it's going to start spilling over. Well, what happens when you don't get the chance to go in and go buy, your LOB boxes or Magic Ruler boxes? Well, you're going to go with the next oldest thing, your next reasonable option. Which brings me to one of the investments that when I first started getting into, one of the sealed things that I picked up, well, I thought it was still very extremely cheap, was this guy here for, you know what, I'm going to bring up my face here a bit closer. Pharaonic Guardian, that's a sealed first edition pack. My apologies for the quality on that. I'm sure you can read that. And I brought this up on the channel before. This isn't anything new. But I bought this pack at a really reasonable price, especially back when the market was inflated. And to be honest with you, I feel like I probably overpaid versus what I could pay for now. But that's beyond the point. It's paid for. But I bought this for a reasonable price. If you look at even just packs, we're just going to talk packs for a second, of those big three, we'll say even big four Pharaoh Servant sets, you typically are going to pay a lot for those packs because they're premium cards inside of them, right? I mean, it's one of those things that they're just not feasible. I didn't pay a lot for this. To give you an idea, I think I paid like $70 for this pack, which again is a lot considering they were $3 when they released. But, that's something that can accrue value over time. And I think we're going to see down the road, and especially in the nearer future, that these are going to start accruing a lot more value as people want to get more packs like this. This is still a very old set. Pharaonic Guardian was 2003, to give you guys an idea. It came just after Pharaoh Servant, the first of the four, the fourth set in. But this set gets hella overlooked. And there's a lot of good cards in this set here. And so what I want to show you guys today, and we're going to bring it up to the desktop here in a second, is all these older sets from like 2003 to 2005 have incredibly cheap cards. It's not too late to get in. You've got foils on foils on foils that you can get for pretty much pennies on the dollar. And even sealed, if you want to get into old sealed product, another pack that I always show people is the Soul the Duelist. Now, maybe I got an absolutely killer deal on this pack. I think I got it for $5, so I think that's way undervalued. But realistically, if you go search on eBay or anywhere around, you're probably going to find a sealed pack like this for $20 to $40 at most. That's not a lot, even just for a sealed pack. Again, boxes for a lot of budget people might still be out of the price range, but it's still not expensive when you consider it if you have that money to spend. But I'm a budget channel. We're going to talk about the budget stuff. We're going to talk about the more reasonable stuff that people like me and you can go out and buy right now without having to break the bank and keep everything on a fixed income, if you will. So the way I look at it is I'm going to bring up a bunch of cards here from a lot of these older sets that I think have incredible value up down the road to, gain value over time, if you will. And I think there's a lot of stuff that we're overlooking. So let's go on to my desktop view here, and let's have a look at TCG Player. And I'm just going to bring up a few cards. These are all now, if we see here, from older sets. So we're going to be looking at Labyrinth of Nightmare, Legacy of Darkness, Pharaonic Guardian, stuff like Ancient Sanctuary. A lot of these packs we grew up with as kids, so you can't say there's no nostalgia factor there. Yes, of course, there's a much bigger draw to LOB. There's a much bigger draw to Metal Raiders because, again, that was the very start. That was the very alpha, the base set of the game. So, of course, there's going to be a lot of hype for that. But that doesn't mean there shouldn't be value behind all these other sets that aren't that much older that succeeded. So, again, to give you an idea here, Masterpiece. It's an ultra rare from an old Labyrinth Nightmare, one of these older sets. You can pick up lightly played, even near mint first edition copies for, $30 to $50 for this guy here. And that was an ultra rare card from one of these older sets. We also have to realize, I'm going to show you a lot of ultra rare cards. Back in the day, pulling an ultra rare card was not easy. We don't have packs like our newer packs nowadays. We are guaranteed a foil every single pack, no matter what. Super rares have now kind of preceded the rare spot, and ultra rares are kind of preceded the super rare spot, and so on and so forth nowadays. So we value ultra rare cards a lot less than what they actually were back then. So something like the Mass Beast, for example, $30 light play. That's nothing. Ancient Sanctuary, overlooked. It is an old pack. It is a classic set, 2005. It's 16 years old. Nobody even considers it. You have the debut of the Monarch, something like Zaborg the Thunder Monarch, for example. We're looking at $12 first edition. It's not. Sorry, going back to cut myself off. I thought somebody was breaking into my house. Just my cat being an asshole. My apologies, everybody. We're at the splices 2 videos, and I'll have to edit it and do all the fun stuff in the background. Anyways, lesser point. Back into my talking. So, $12 for a light play. Nothing. That is nothing for a card like this here. Especially Monarchs, which are, I know we've got like, Ryza and Theslos and Mobius were probably a little more played. But even still, this is a card that saw meta play back in 2005 to 2007-ish, basically. Like, pretty considerable meta play. And we're talking $20 for a near mint copy. And something to consider is there's always a chance, very little, and I'll be very upfront and honest with you here, but there's always a chance with some of these near mint copies that you can even pick them up right now and go and have them sent out for grading. Now, I feel like a lot of people right now would probably, grade these if they actually had the chance to do so, but there's no reason that you can't even send these out and get yourself a 7 or an 8 on PSA. That's why it's always really important when you buy these cards, get picky. Always ask for pictures and if you can and get picky with it. Like, I just sold the Magic Cylinder first edition, and I had the guy ask me for pictures because he was asking about, because it was a moderate play, creases and stuff like that. And I was completely okay. I'm very transparent when I sell. I figure honesty is kind of the best policy with this stuff here. But, to get to my point without rambling too much, yeah, there's no reason that some of these cards you can't buy raw to get them graded. PSA is going to be opening up back here slowly, and so a lot of the more budget grading services that you want to get into for cards like this are very possible. Now, I'm not going to say you're going to go buy a Zaborg first edition and go graded, but, we're talking a super rare from an old set. But you think about it, there's a lot of potential in these cards here to get a lot more value to them than what there really is. Again, we're going to go to Mazur DeVille here. Ancient Sanctuary Secret Rare. That's a secret rare from an old set. And we're talking literally in the near mints, $34, $35, $36. Nothing. That is nothing for a vintage secret rare. If you go look right now at even secret rares from, Labyrinth of Nightmare, Legacy of Darkness, Yatagarasu, we're looking at Gemini Elf. We're looking at cards like Ring of Destruction. We're looking at cards like Magic Cylinder, for example, secret rares. And those cards in near mint condition garner a pretty damn good price. Yes, I get they have more demand for them. There's more value because of demand, because a lot of those cards were, considerably, a lot more fundamental to the early game. But when you're looking at this card at a near mint, pretty much pack fresh copy, oh my god, who's calling me? I'm gonna have to fucking make a lot of videos today. I'll be back in a second. I swear to God, I'm not gonna get to this video today without being interrupted like 18 times. Good God. On to the next thing here. Don Zalug played very competitively. Okay, Pharaonic Guardian. Near mints, $45, $44, like $50. For a lot of people, that's not a whole ton of money, okay? And I've got a lot more cheaper options here if you want to go even like really tighter budget. Like, I am the king of Yu-Gi-Oh! Thrifting as far as I'm concerned. That's like my specialty here is Yu-Gi-Oh! Thrifting, okay? Nightmare Wheel from Pharaonic Guardian, okay? Ultra rare card from Pharaonic Guardian. We're talking $25 fucking dollars. I could put this in my 25 under 25. I might have to. I still have that video coming up. We'll see. I got to do some research and plop some stuff in here. Maybe I'm cheating this video too much. This is like a pseudo 25 under 25. Guardian Sphinx. This was in the anime. This card is 18 years old, and they're selling it $25 in a first edition near mint copy. How do you not jump at something like that? And whether you throw it in a binder or whether you decide if you want to try to grade it, why would you not do that? This is free money people are leaving on the table. Like, you have to consider, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not that vintage of a card game yet, okay? 18 years and a lot of things does not make vintage. You have to have a lot, double that time at least, to even get anywhere near that when we talk collectibles and things like that. So, don't ever think it's too late to get into this old vintage, even on a budget. Like, I'm giving you a lot. I don't need to go through a million examples here. Creature Swap, sorry, I was thinking Marauding Captain's up next. $30, right? Nobody's looking at these cards. I'm bringing up cards that were played heavily in GOAT format meta back in the day. Marauding Captain, we're talking Warrior Beatdown, Warrior Control, Warrior Toolbox decks. Every deck played this at 2 or 3, depending on what your ban list actually is. We're talking $20 light plays, near mints in the $20 range. This is nothing. Why are we not paid? Why did this card not have more market under it? Why is it not more expensive? That is a classic card. Classic. As a collector now, I mean, I'm looking at myself wondering why I'm not jumping in half of these and buying in right now. Yeah, I get there's probably tons on the market, but if we look at a long-term hold, especially if we can go and look at getting some of these potentially graded at with PSA, some PSA's more economy services when they open up. And again, I could be crazy, right? I'm not a financial advisor here. Again, $23, $25, $28 pretty much. Like, that is, I'm pretty sure on the Legacy of Darkness. I'm going to look this up right now. In the pack of Legacy of Darkness, I'm pretty sure that's the cover card of Legacy of Darkness. That's the cover card of a pack from 2003. We're going to go prove that now, because I like to prove myself. Oh, maybe it's last turn. I think Chicago City was in last turn. Okay. Never mind. Doesn't matter. I think we get the point. I'm not gonna rail this on too long tonight. I think the point's been kind of made here. For people who are thinking it's way too late to invest into Yu-Gi-Oh, it's not. Yu-Gi-Oh is still a very cheap game as far as I'm concerned, especially in the vintage era. The problem is we tend to get a little too invested in the 3 core sets. The problem is stock of those isn't going to be around forever. They've only gone up in price, and they're only going to go up in price, especially when people like Ruxin and people like vintage Yu-Gi-Oh, I think what it is, or I can't remember the names. It's a long day, but anyways, I think that sealed stuff's not going to be around forever. And eventually, that sealed product that people want to open to get views on their channel, to build their channel, to build whatever, or just to open old stuff, well, they're going to have to keep moving over to other stuff. So maybe now is not a bad time to start considering some of these older sets that are still affordable while they are. I'm not saying we're going to get to Legend of Blue Eyes prices on this, and let me be clear with that. I'm not saying that a pack of, Legacy of Darkness, for example, or a box, is ever going to get to the price that LOB is or will be. That's not what I'm going on here. But what I'm saying is there's a lot more potential when I'm seeing packs of LOB being sold for $700-800, knowing that packs of these sets are $30 to $80 right now. Okay? Think outside the box. Don't always look at the hype. Don't always look at the trends. The thing is, if you're going to make big W's with a lot of this stuff here, you might want to consider putting some of your investment into some of these sets. Because LOB sealed is not going to be around forever. It is way beyond what my budget is. My dream is to have a sealed booster box or even a booster pack of Legend of Blue Eyes. That's a dream. I would never open it. That's a hold for the rest of my life. That is an accomplishment to own. Okay? But I can look at Labyrinth of Nightmare, Legacy of Darkness, Chronic Guardian, Pharaoh Servant, and go, yeah, I can go buy a pack right now. If I really wanted to, if I really have a little extra cash I want to go throw at, some old collectible sealed. Yeah, I can go buy some singles from these, some of the secret rares and ultra rares from these sets. Even a near mint, I can afford them. So, that's where I'm going to leave it at today. I said I wasn't going to leave it long. We're going to cut it off here. I think you have gotten my point. I think I've driven that in very well. I want to make this a very important point. Don't ever think it's too late to get into it, okay? There's a lot of vintage Yu-Gi-Oh to still be gotten, and I want you guys to really consider that while the prices are still fair, okay? Have a good night. Captain Jess is out.